Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Amanda Lamb. It's not every day that you get to work with your dad on the project of a lifetime. That's the gift I've experienced for the past year as I delved into one of his old cases to create a true crime serial podcast for WRAL called The Killing Month, August 1978. Even though I was just an adolescent at the time, it was a murder case that always stuck with me. 6 people dead, shot, and in some cases, even buried alive. The criminals were a band of brothers known as the Johnston Gang, who killed witnesses when they threatened to snitch on them to police. My dad, William Lamb, was the prosecutor, who along with a very talented assistant district attorney and a dedicated group of investigators, sought justice in this case. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing my dad in person about what this experience has been like working with me on the podcast and about what he thinks about the final product. Dad, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So when I first came and told you I wanted to create a podcast about this case, you really didn't even know what a podcast was, right?
I had no clue what a podcast was. Back in my day, we didn't have iPhones, iPads, text messages, not even faxes.
So I explained it was a little bit like old-time radio, right, where you probably experienced as a child. You sit around, you listen to a story. And so you were kind of game to do it.
Absolutely. I was happy to do it primarily because of you.
And so for people who don't know this story, because this is obviously a 45-year-old story, it happened in Pennsylvania where I grew up, where you're from. Give us just a brief outline of who the Johnstons were and, you know, what they were accused of without giving away too much because not everyone has listened to the whole story yet.
The Johnston Gang was a group of 3 brothers that migrated with Ma Barker Johnston from Mountain City, Tennessee. And they really terrorized the county in which I was the DA, Chester County, Pennsylvania, which is suburban Philadelphia. But there are parts of Chester County which are extremely rural. And these band of brothers ended up stealing lots of different things, equipment, tractors, cars, body parts, all that kind of stuff. And it really started in the early 70s and culminated in their collective arrests at the end of the 70s in 1978 or 79.
And that obviously, as I described in the intro, was when they started killing witnesses, and that was kind of the thing that brought them down. So I was 12 in 1978 when the crimes happened, 13 and 14 when the 3 defendants, David, Norman, and Bruce Johnston, went to trial. And I was there for both of the trials, parts of them. Did you ever think at that time that this case would have such an impact on me?
No, I did not. You were obviously very young at the time, but I wanted you to have the experience, quite frankly, of seeing what your father did, and that's why I took you.
Yeah, and it really kind of stuck with me, obviously, all these years. Well, we will be right back after the break. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I am interviewing my dad today about our newest podcast from WRAL, a true crime podcast called The Killing Month, August 1978. You know, we've talked about this, you and I, for the past year as we've been working on this story. Why do you think this case and this story still resonates with so many people 45 years later?
I think the answer is that the community in which the Johnston's pillaged, robbed, etc., was a little bucolic, sleepy community in the southern part of Chester County. And I think the idea was that if it could happen there, it could happen anywhere. And that's why they still talk about it, because in effect, that part of the county was no longer a virgin.
So you went on to have a very successful career as a private attorney and also on the bench of the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. But you've told me many times throughout this process that this case was really a pinnacle for you in terms of professional experiences. Why do you think?
Well, people often ask me, what's the best job you ever had? And I've had a few. Assistant DA, private attorney, representing the governor of Pennsylvania, and finally going on the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. But my best job that I ever had was being district attorney of Chester County. And it's one that I think was the pinnacle of my career.
And that was just because it was so interesting, I would imagine, and you had such a passion for it.
Well, more than that. I mean, you often hear in today's world that law enforcement agencies don't get along, that the FBI doesn't like the state police, and the state police don't like county detectives and local police departments, etc. This case was a shining example of law enforcement cooperation, and it was great.
So I know when you know something inside and out, it's a little hard to read or to watch because it's so personal. But you even told me throughout this podcast that you actually learned some things from our research that you didn't know.
I did. That's correct. Well, didn't know or had forgotten. I mean, I'm a senior citizen now, and sometimes you have memory problems, but it did bring back a lot of different emotions to me. And as I said, there were things that you revealed and witnesses that you interviewed that I had long since forgotten about.
And what was your overall impression of the series?
Of your series?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well done. Captured the essence of what it was all about. Really showed the cooperation of the various law enforcement agencies, band of brothers getting together. And the important thing, and I always used to say when I was district attorney, there is no I in law enforcement. There is only we. And this was a shining example of we doing the job.
And really, in many ways, it's the kind of case that probably couldn't happen today, because now you would have surveillance video and you would have GPS and you would have text messages and ways to track people. But back then, this was just good old-fashioned police work.
That's exactly right. Gumshoe police work. And boy, did we have a lot of them that were very expert at what they did, anywhere from investigating to babysitting to getting people back and forth. We probably had 50 law enforcement personnel working on this thing at the height of it, and not far from that when we tried the cases in Western Pennsylvania, the first case, and the second case back in Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so here's the $1 million question. What was it like working with me?
It was surreal working with you. I mean, who would have thought? First of all, we've always been extremely proud of Amanda for the career that she's pursued and gotten. And then for her to come back and say, I know how it happened because I sent her my file when we moved.
You downsized, and you said, do you want these? And I said, yeah.
Right, exactly. And so she went through them, and she said, I think there may be a story here. Would you be willing to do it? And I said, willing? If I can do something with you, that would be fantastic. And P.S., you did a great job.
Well, thank you, Dad. And P.S., I'm very proud of you, always have been. And this, for me, has been one of my professional milestones that I will never forget, getting to work with you. It's been an honor. So I appreciate it very much. And, of course, all the other people that participated. So thank you, Dad.
Thank you.
This has been the WRAL Daily Download, a production of WRAL News. Check out my other 2 true crime podcasts. What Remains focuses on solving cold cases with forensic science. Follow the Truth is about the murder of Michael Jordan's father in North Carolina in 1993. Find What Remains and Follow the Truth in your podcast apps. Thanks for listening.